Well, hello and welcome to the first video where we want to set up our data model because in order to work with Power BI and learn more about DAX, of course we need to set up the data model structure first. So let's do that. Let's import the data. In our case, we have an Excel file which you can download from the resource section to follow along, so that is why I can either click here on this import data from Excel, or I can go up there in the ribbon bar, tick Excel here, or go to get data and also tick Excel here, or as a fourth option go to more and then a navigator window appears where it could also select Excel as a data source. So I keep it simple now. I simply click here import data from Excel and then I use this PBI training XLSX file. I can tick this option and I can open. So we connect, so far so good, and then the navigator window appears, here it is. Now we can select here the specific tables or the worksheets. So the little table icons for the blue bar, these are Excel tables, and if you're like me then you consider best practice to import the table instead of the whole worksheet, because then you make sure you only import the specific data from the worksheet you need. So because we have tables, I can tick these options here, these three, and then I simply go to transform data, because most of the time there is something we need to adjust. So I still don't know why Power BI is actually highlighting the load, but I would always go to transform data first just to make sure that there is no additional data or data missing, which we need to clean at first. So let's check that. Okay, here we are, the suppliers table, and I can see it's called suppliers 3. That's not what I want. So I go to the naming option here in the properties section and say this is my suppliers TBL suppliers. And I call it TBL as an abbreviation for table. I can press enter and you can see that now it's renamed. By the way, you could also right click here and say I want to rename it. Here works exactly the same way. So let's do that for the orders table. Click on rename and call this orders TBL. So far so good. And then finally we do the same for the employees table. Right click here and say rename, and so this is our employees TBL. Okay, so let's check the tables then. Employees TBL. I can see we got ID, name, surname, and office country, and also got office team with missing data here. So let's fix that. We see that these are all office team US and then there's office team UK, and we can see that there is simply the missing below, so we can simply fill this down. There's an option under the transform ribbon. You can go in here and say first select a specific column and say then under fill option. You can either fill down, which is the default one, or fill up. In our case it's filled down, so you can take the option fill down. Take this and now you can see that it's simply filled with the value from above sale. By the way, you could also right click here and there's also all these options you find in the ribbon, and also as an example here the fill option right. So if you go to see, there's a fill option there, and also you have an option to fill up and fill down. If you prefer it this way, works exactly the same way. Okay, so we got this fixed. Then another thing I spotted, if I go to the suppliers table, skipping the orders table for now, I see that my office country here has UK and then USA. So obviously the country United States here is abbreviated as USA. In the employees table on the other hand, it's currently spelled as US. Now even though those two tables, the employees table and suppliers table, will not be linked together because they basically have the relation with the orders table, which is our main facts table, and these two are dimension tables, I still like to be concise here and actually have USA everywhere. That is why we can also do a little transformation here. I simply go in here, select the column here, and then say I want to replace the values. There's an option here, replace values, and then you can search for a specific value, like for instance US, and then simply replace it with USA. Now if you do this and click OK, now you see basically that you also replaced US with USA. Okay, so we got this also fixed, and I think the employees table for now is done. So the suppliers table itself one more time, also check the data types whole number for Supplier D, that's fine. Supply name ABC also okay, and country ABC also okay. So we're good to go with those two tables, and let's finally take a look at the orders. TBL. So select it and then let's check that. So employee ID, which is this one, which will be linked to the employees table here also. I would highly recommend that you check that the data type's correct. So if there's a number, whole number for employee ID here, it makes sense that if you want to connect it to the employees table here, you also check that this is also a whole number here. If not, simply change it here, okay, and the same is true for supplier CBL, because there's a supplier ID here which will be linked to the orders table, which is in this case a whole number, so it should also be a whole number in the orders table. So let's actually scroll a little bit to the right and let's just see where the supplier ID is. There is this column here and we can see it, and it's also whole number, so that is fine. So then let's check the other columns. Always have a quick look at the data type, and here I can see that our orders table is a date here, which calendar icon implies the ship date. On the other hand is not. So this is something like to adjust, and that is why I can click here and then I say I'd like to adjust this here and say this should be a date. So if you try it this way, then probably I will ask you, do you want to replace the current step or any new step? This window will only appear if the last step, as you can see here in the applied step windows, was also change type. Because it will ask me whether I want to replace the last step here or in a new step. I would highly encourage you, if you do that, always try to add new step, because if this step fails for whatever reason, it's easier to reroute it. Okay. So I take this option and you can see we ran into an error, and that is why, as long as we have a new step here, we can simply click the cross symbol and we have the original situation back. If we would have actually replaced the current step and I would click the cross symbol here, then all the data types which Power BI has actually added to the specific column would be gone, and I would have to do this manually, and I don't want to do that, and I guess you don't want to do that either. So adding new step is fine, but how do we fix the ship date? Well, the trick here is, and this is what I would recommend you to do, is first transform it always into a text, because this operation actually never fails, at least from a personal experience so far. If you do it this way, then again go to add new step, and then you see that now we have a text field. Okay. And you see we still got the value, and from the text field it's easier now to go to this ABC type, and using local functionality, take this option here and then just wait until the window appears. There it is, and then you can specify what kind of data type it should be. What it should be at date, we set that already, and then choose the local setting, and in this case I'll leave to the default one, which in my case is Germany, because I know that this works for this specific form of the date. And if I go to OK now, I will see that here I get the real dates inside OK, and I can also see the icon here and also the green line, which implies that there is no missing data and also no errors. So far so good. Then what else can we do? If we scroll to the right and let's just check what's there any other issues we explore. Well, here in a customer zip code we can see that there is currently missing data in here, right? So this is something, if you go in here, of course you can check what this is actually. If you go to null here and filter is, then you would see that obviously here for one specific customer, in this case, which is Patricia McKenna, there basically the zip code is missing. Well, in our case it's not that important actually, because we don't work with this column, but in a real world scenario, if the zip code would be an important column and you want to use it in your report, then I would highly recommend you to go to the specific person responsible for that and address it and ask what actually the zip code is to fill this missing data. Okay. For now let me actually remove the filter growth step, because I don't want to do that, and just in case you want to replace it, you could do it simply by, you already know that you could go to replace values here, and as an example I just show it to you for now. If I one more time select the null here just to see it, we got again Patricia McKenna. If you select the column first and then go to, in this case, replace values, this option replace values, you can Really search for missing data by simply really adding the null here, so null with, let's say, 99,999, and now if you click OK, then you would see that your place basically here the zip code and you filled it completely right, but be aware if you do it this way, make sure that you have not filtered the rows, because otherwise if you now load the data you would only load the data for a little specific customer, right? You don't want to do that, so let me actually remove this step and also the prior one. If you want to really fill the values, then simply do not filter the rows up front, only replace the values directly. That would work, but for us now, as I said, it's not that important, so that is why I removed those two steps and leave that for now. Okay, so we got those three tables, and then we need one additional table, which is our dates table, right? Best practice in Power BI if you want to use time intelligence functions, make sure you have a proper dates table set up. So let's actually check the dates. In my case, I know I have dates between 2019 and 2021. If I scroll to the bottom, I can see that, so obviously you need for this time frame my specific date table. So let's actually import it. I can go under home and add a new source, click this, and then I want to use a blank query in here because we will use custom code to do that. And here now we have a query. We can write the query either here in this window, but what I would recommend you to do is go to the advanced editor here and then remove everything inside. So this is such a sample code, and I will simply paste this with the code so you can find this in your source section. It's quite long, so you don't need to write it yourself, and the great thing here really is that you also do not know you need to know how to write it yourself, because you can use this in all your future Power BI projects. So let me copy this here and then go back to the editor and paste it, and you can see there are no syntax errors, but it's quite a long formula actually, and a lot of columns for the dates. So click on done. Now we have the function, and the only thing left is to invoke the function now. So I can go in here, start date, and say we start at the 1st of January 2019, and then finally the end date will be the 33st in my case of December and 2021. Yeah, like that. And if I actually start month is simply January, just in case you have something different you can also specify it here. For instance, some companies start their financially in June or in July, and others in May because it ends in April, and so on. So you can modify it here, but in my case one is fine. And if you have an additional table with a holiday column, you can also import it here and choose the column from just to flag certain days as holidays, because they vary between countries. So maybe there's something specific for your country, then you can choose this column here from a holidays table, but you need to import it first. In my case it's on the case, so I'm fine with that. Then I invoke the function here, and I have my dates table, which is currently called invoke function. So let me actually rename this here properly and say this is my dates TBL to be consistent here. Okay, and then finally, of course, we can load this data. So click on close and apply as soon as you're done, and then we import the data and let Power BI detect the relationships. By the way, you can also set in the options and settings that Power BI should not detect relations automatically. If this is something you don't want to do, you want to do it manually, then you can also enable that for us. Now that's fine, because if I go to the model view just to check what Power BI has actually, I'll spot it here. Okay, and I also click on upgrade now. This in the future will probably not necessarily necessary for you, but in my case I still need to click at the option to see this new interface. In here now I have my orders table, which is my facts table, and I have my dimensions table, which is the suppliers table, and also an employees table. And you see that here if I hover over them, the relations are here set up correctly, automatically detect by Power BI. And as I said, if you don't want this to do automatically, you can disable it in the options and settings on the file if you want to do that. The last table we need to adjust here is a dates table. I also put it on top here, and then I need to create my connection between the dates table and the date field in the orders table. Now we have the order state. We also have the shipping date here, the ship date call. However, I want to create my originalization space in the order date, so that's why I'm using the date here and drag it here onto the order date like that and create connection. And you Can see it's a 1-2 star as the other ones as well. It simply means we have one specific value well in each of either dimension tables and hopefully many values for the same day. As an example from the latest table in the orders table, which means that more customers or multiple customers ordered a lot of items from our stores in this on the same day, so that's basically setting up the data model. Other things so far are not necessary, and now we go back to the view here and now we can actually start creating our first calculations. So that's it for this video. Thanks a lot for watching and I can't wait to see you in the next couple of videos. Until then, best guys. Best guys.